The elevator doors opened, and my breath caught in my throat. Gareth Quinn, my ex-husband, the man who destroyed me with 7 words 2 years ago, stood right there in the hospital lobby. He looked older, tired in ways that went deeper than sleepless nights. A polished woman clung to his arm, her rings screaming desperate hope as they headed toward the fertility specialist's office. The irony nearly knocked me sideways. My hands tightened around the clipboard. I turned away before those gray eyes could find mine and dragged me back into a past I'd fought to escape. But here's the thing about hospitals: you can't hide for long, especially not when you're carrying 3 babies down the hallway. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. My name is Alara. I'm 31 now, a nurse, standing in the wreckage of what I've rebuilt. This story starts 2 years ago when I still believed love could fix anything broken. I met Gareth when I was 22, fresh out of nursing school. He ran a small auto shop in our Ohio town. Quiet, steady, the kind of man who showed up when he said he would. After growing up watching my parents destroy each other, Gareth felt like peace. We married under an oak tree. Simple ceremony. For 2 years, life was good. Then people started asking about kids. We tried everything. Months turned into years. Then came the doctor's appointment that changed everything. The issue isn't with Alara, the doctor said. It's male factor infertility. Relief flooded through me. It wasn't me. But Gareth pulled his hand away like I'd burned him. 3 days later, during a rainstorm, he finally spoke. I need a son, Alara. But not from you. The words hit like a physical blow. My vision blurred. The room tilted. My legs gave out. I woke up in a hospital bed. He'd left. A week later, divorce papers sat on the kitchen table. I packed everything and drove until the streets stopped looking familiar. Found work at a clinic outside Columbus. Met Dr. Rowan Hale, who saw me, really saw me. 2 years passed. Then, one Monday morning, a pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines. Impossible. Except it wasn't. 8 weeks pregnant. Then an ultrasound revealed 3 heartbeats. Triplets. The babies carried Gareth's genetic markers. Conception happened before he left, before he decided I wasn't enough. Now here I stood, arms full of sleeping infants. And Gareth was walking straight toward me, his eyes widening as he saw their dark curls, their gray eyes, exact copies of his. Alara. His voice cracked. Those can't be. What would you do if the person who abandoned you suddenly discovered what they'd thrown away? Alara, wait. His voice cracked behind me, desperate and strangled, but my feet kept moving. 1 step, then another, carrying me and my babies away from the man who once told me I wasn't enough. The woman beside him, his fiancée, I assumed, grabbed his arm. Gareth, who is that? What is she talking about? I didn't turn around to see his face. Didn't need to. I'd already seen everything I needed in that first moment of recognition. The shock, the regret, the math he was frantically doing in his head. My hands trembled as I pushed through the maternity ward doors. A nurse looked up concerned. Alara, you okay? You look pale. I'm fine. I lied, my voice steadier than my heartbeat. Just need to get these 3 back to the nursery. I settled the babies into their bassinets, my fingers lingering on each tiny face. 2 boys, 1 girl. Perfect. Healthy. Mine. The door swung open. My stomach dropped. But it wasn't Gareth. It was Rowan, his tie loosened after a long surgery, concern etched into his features. I saw him, he said quietly, closing the door behind him. Downstairs. It looks like he saw a ghost. He saw his children, I corrected, sinking into the chair by the window. He just doesn't know it yet. Not for sure. Rowan knelt beside me, taking my hand. What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? For 2 years, I'd built a life without Gareth. Found peace in the chaos of night shifts and baby cries that weren't my own. Fell in love with a man who saw me as whole, not broken. Created a family from the ashes of the one that burned me alive. Now Gareth was back, standing in my hospital with his new woman and his old shame, staring at the evidence of his biggest mistake. I want to believe, I whispered. I want him to disappear like he made me disappear. But even as I said it, I knew life doesn't work that way. The babies stirred. My daughter, I named her Iris, made a small sound, and instantly both boys responded. They were connected like that, always aware of each other, even in sleep. He's going to come back, Rowan said gently. You know that, right? Once he processes what he saw, he's going to have questions. I nodded, exhaustion settling into my bones. Let him have questions. Doesn't mean I owe him answers. But 2 hours later, as my shift ended and I walked toward the parking lot, there he was, leaning against my car. Alone this time, looking like a man who'd aged a decade in an afternoon. We need to talk, Gareth said. I stopped 5 feet away, keys clutched in my fist. No, we really don't. Those babies, he ran a hand through his hair, the same gesture he used to make when he was stressed about money or his mother or anything he couldn't fix with his hands. Alara, are they mine? The question hung in the cold October air between us. I could lie. Should lie, maybe. Protect my children from a man who'd already proven he'd abandon them before they were even born. But I've never been good at lying. Does it matter? I asked instead. His face crumpled. Does it? Alara, of course it matters. If those are my children. If. The word came out sharp as broken glass. You saw them, Gareth. You looked into their faces and saw yourself staring back. Don't insult us both by pretending you have doubts. He stepped closer. I stepped back. I didn't know, he said, his voice raw. When I left, I didn't know you were pregnant. You have to believe that. I wasn't, I said flatly. Not when you left. Not when you served me divorce papers. Not when you decided I wasn't worth fighting for. Confusion flickered across his face. Then how? Remember our last night together? I watched understanding dawn in his eyes. Before the doctor's appointment? Before you decided your pride mattered more than our marriage? His face went white. But the doctor said, male infertility isn't always permanent. Sometimes the body finds a way. I quoted Rowan's words back at him, watching them land like punches. Congratulations, Gareth. Turns out you could give me children after all. You just weren't around to see it. Have you ever watched someone realize they threw away everything they claimed to want? Drop a comment below. Gareth looked like I'd physically struck him. He braced himself against my car, breathing hard, and for a split second I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the sound of my body hitting the floor. The hospital bed I woke up in alone. The divorce papers left like a grocery list on the kitchen table. The sympathy died. Alara, please. His voice broke. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. But those are my children. No. The word came out cold and final. They're my children. You gave up any claim to them when you walked away. I didn't know they existed. And whose fault is that? I unlocked my car, desperate to end this conversation before I said something I couldn't take back. You didn't want children from me, remember? Well, you got your wish. These aren't from you either. Not in any way that matters. I slid into the driver's seat, but he grabbed the door before I could close it. I was wrong, he said, and tears, actual tears, filled his eyes. I was scared and stupid, and I hurt you in ways I can't ever take back. But I'm begging you, don't punish my children for my mistakes. Your children? I laughed, harsh and bitter. They're 3 months old, Gareth. They don't know you exist. And if I have anything to say about it, they never will. I pulled the door closed, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I watched him standing in the parking lot, looking lost in a way I recognized because I'd looked exactly the same 2 years ago. But I didn't stop, didn't turn around. At home, Rowan was waiting with dinner, takeout Chinese, and a bottle of wine he knew I couldn't drink, but bought anyway, because normal people have wine with dinner, and he was trying to make life feel normal. He was in my car, I said, dropping my bag by the door. Rowan set down his fork. What did he say? That he made a mistake. That they're his children. That I shouldn't punish them for what he did. I sank into the chair across from him. He cried, Rowan. Actually cried. What do you want to do? That question again. The one I couldn't answer. I want to protect them, I finally said. From disappointment. From a father who might decide they're not what he wanted after all. From being abandoned the way he abandoned me. Rowan reached across the table, taking my hand. He's their biological father. Eventually, you'll have to deal with that. Why? The word came out sharper than I intended. He signed away his rights when he divorced me. He has no legal claim. Legal isn't the same as moral, Ilara. I pull my hand back. Don't make him the victim here. I'm not, Rowan said gently. But those kids deserve to know where they came from. Who they came from, even if he doesn't deserve to know them. The words hit harder because they came from him. The man who'd loved my children from their first ultrasound, who'd assembled 3 cribs at 2 in the morning, who'd held my hair back during morning sickness and my hand during delivery. If anyone had earned the right to be called their father, it was Rowan. But biology doesn't care about who earns what. 3 days passed. I worked my shifts, avoided the lobby, and pretended Gareth Quinn didn't exist. Then a letter appeared in my mailbox. Handwritten. His familiar scrawl across the envelope made my hand shake. I almost threw it away. Should have thrown it away. But curiosity, that cruel, persistent thing, made me open it instead. The letter was 3 pages long, front and back, words crammed together like he couldn't write fast enough. He told me everything. How the diagnosis had broken something in him. How his mother's disappointment had been unbearable. How he'd watched his father die without grandchildren and felt like he was failing some cosmic test of manhood. He told me about the woman I'd seen, Rebecca. How she'd seemed like a fresh start, someone who didn't carry the weight of his failures. How he'd proposed 3 months ago, desperate to prove he could build the family he'd destroyed. He told me about their appointment at the fertility clinic. How the doctor had explained that his condition might be permanent. How Rebecca had cried in the parking lot, and he'd realized he was about to hurt another woman the exact same way. Then he told me about seeing me in that hallway, holding 3 babies with his eyes, and understanding, finally devastatingly understanding, what he'd thrown away. The last paragraph made my vision blur. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve you or them. But I'm asking anyway, because I don't know what else to do. Those children are half me, and I'm already half missing without them. Please, Ilara, let me try. Let me be better than the man who hurt you. I read it twice, then a 3rd time. Then I called Rowan. He wants to meet them, I said when he answered. He wrote me this letter, and, God, Rowan, part of me wants to let him. How messed up is that? It's not messed up, he said quietly. It's human. Would you give a second chance to someone who destroyed you? Tell us in the comments what you do. I didn't respond to Garrett's letter. Not right away. Instead, I carried it in my purse for a week, reading it during quiet moments at work, trying to find the lie hidden in his words. But if there was one, I couldn't find it. The truth was worse. He meant every word. The remorse was real. The regret was eating him alive. And somehow that made everything harder. Iris got sick on a Tuesday. Nothing serious, just a cold that made her tiny nose stuffy and her breathing sound-labored. But when you're a first-time mother, every sniffle feels like an emergency. I called Rowan in a panic at 3 in the morning. He talked me down, reminding me about saline drops and a humidifier and how babies sound worse than they are. You're doing great, he said, his voice rough with sleep. She's going to be fine. You're all going to be fine. But as I sat in the nursery, holding Iris while she struggled to breathe through her congestion, a thought hit me like cold water. What if something happened to me? What if I got in a car accident or got sick or just stopped existing? Rowan wasn't their legal guardian. He wasn't on their birth certificates. If something happened, my babies would go to the state, to strangers, to anyone but the people who love them, unless their father claimed them. The thought made me nauseous, but it also made me pull out my phone and type a message before I could talk myself out of it. We need to talk. About the children. About what happens next. Gareth responded in 30 seconds. When? Where? I'll come to you. We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over neutral territory where neither of us had memories. He arrived 10 minutes early, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. He'd always been confident, sure of himself. Now, he looked like a man walking on ice, terrified of falling through. Thank you, he said before I could even sit down, for agreeing to meet. I know, I don't deserve. Stop, I interrupted, sliding into the booth across from him. Let's skip the apologies. We both know sorry doesn't fix anything. He nodded, wrapping both hands around his coffee cup like he needed something to hold on to. I want to meet them, he said quietly. Not as their father. I know I haven't earned that. But as I don't know, someone who exists in their life. even just at the edges. Why? I asked. Why now? You had 2 years to wonder if I was okay, if I'd moved on, if there was any unfinished business between us. You never reached out. Not once. I thought you hated me, he said simply. I thought the best thing I could do was stay away. I did hate you, I admitted. Some days I still do. But those babies didn't ask for any of this. They didn't ask to have a father who walked away before they existed. His jaw tightened. I know. Do you? I leaned forward. Do you understand what you're asking for? This isn't about you feeling better about your choices, Gareth. This is about 3 innocent kids who deserve stability. If you're going to be in their lives, you're in. All the way. No running when it gets hard. No disappearing when you realize fatherhood isn't what you imagined. I won't run, he said. I swear to you, Alara, I won't. You swore to love me forever too. I cut him off. Your promises don't mean much to me anymore. The words landed hard. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Good. What about Rebecca? I asked. Your fiancée. Does she know you're here? Does she know about the triplets? His face went carefully blank. We're not together anymore. Since when? Since the day I saw you in the hospital. He met my eyes. She asked me to choose. Her and the future we'd planned, or 3 children I didn't even know. And I chose them. Even before I met them, I chose them. Something shifted in my chest. Not forgiveness, not even close. But maybe the smallest crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. I need to think about it, I said, standing up. This isn't just about you and me anymore. I have to do what's best for them. I understand, Gareth said. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. But as I walked to my car, I heard him call out, Alara. I turned. Were their names? The question stopped me cold. In all his begging and pleading, he'd never asked the most basic thing. Iris, I said softly, and the boys are named Weston and Miles. He repeated the names like a prayer, committing them to memory. I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, wondering if I just made a terrible mistake or the first step towards something like healing. Rowan was waiting when I got home, reading in the armchair with the baby monitor on his lap. How'd it go? He asked, setting down his book. I don't know, I admitted. He seems different, genuine. But how do I trust that? You don't, Rowan said simply. Not yet. Trust gets rebuilt slowly, one kept promise at a time. What if he hurts them? What if he doesn't? Rowan countered gently. What if he's actually changed? What if those kids grow up wondering why you kept them from their father when he was trying? What would you do? Protect your children from past hurt, or give them a chance at knowing their father? Comment below. I spent 3 weeks watching Gareth from a distance before I made my decision. Not stalking, just paying attention. I asked around town, talked to people who knew him, learned what his life looked like now. His auto shop was struggling. Without Rebecca's financial support, he was barely staying afloat. But he'd stopped drinking, something I didn't even know he'd started. He went to therapy every Thursday, visible through the office window as I drove past. He was trying. That didn't erase what he'd done, but it meant something. Finally, on a cold November afternoon, I texted him, Saturday, 2 o'clock, my place, 1 hour. His response was immediate. I'll be there. Thank you. Saturday arrived too fast. I'd cleaned the apartment 3 times, changed my outfit twice, and nearly canceled 4 times before Rowan physically took my phone away. They're 3 months old, he reminded me. They're not going to remember this. But you will. Make sure you can live with whatever you decide. At exactly 2 o'clock, my doorbell rang. Gareth stood on my porch holding a bag full of wrapped presents, looking more terrified than I'd ever seen him. Even more than the day he got the infertility diagnosis. I didn't know what to bring, he said, holding up the bag. So I brought everything. Despite myself, I almost smiled. I let him inside. The babies were in their play area, Iris on her back batting at hanging toys while Weston and Miles dozed in their swings. Gareth stopped in the doorway like he'd hit an invisible wall. Oh, he breathed. Oh, they're real. I supplied. Yeah, they tend to be. He laughed, shaky and overwhelmed, and took a tentative step closer. Can I? You can look, I said. No touching yet. Let them get used to you first. He knelt beside Iris's mat, and I watched his face transform. Wonder replaced fear. Love, instant, fierce, undeniable love, filled his eyes. She has your nose, he whispered. And Weston, that's Weston. He has your mom's chin. The observation startled me. I'd forgotten he knew my mother, had met her twice before she passed. Miles looks like your dad, I said quietly. Around the eyes, we stood there in silence, watching three babies who had no idea they were the center of a storm that had been brewing for years. Then Iris looked up at Gareth and smiled. One of those early baby smiles that might be gas but feels like magic. And Gareth started crying. Not quiet tears. Full, body-shaking sobs that he tried to muffle with his hands. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry, Alara. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I was so stupid and proud and broken that I threw away everything that mattered. I'm sorry they're 3 months old and I'm just meeting them now. I'm sorry. Stop, I said, my own eyes burning. Just stop. He looked up at me, devastated. Being sorry doesn't change anything, I continued. But being present might. So if you're going to be here, be here. Not for me. Not to make yourself feel better about what you did. But for them. He nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. I will. I swear, Alara, I will be whatever they need me to be. The hour stretched into 2. Gareth sat on the floor, letting the babies grab his fingers, talking to them in a soft voice about all the things he wanted to teach them someday. Rowan came home from his shift and stopped short seeing Gareth there. The two men stared at each other, and I held my breath, waiting for anger or jealousy or something explosive. Instead, Rowan extended his hand. I'm Rowan. I'm in love with Alara, and I've been helping raise these 3 since before they were born. Gareth took his hand, standing. I'm got it. I'm the biggest idiot you'll ever meet, and I'm trying to be better. Good, Rowan said simply. They deserve better. The tension could have shattered glass. But instead, something unexpected happened. Thank you, Gareth said to Rowan, for being there when I wasn't, for loving them and her when I was too broken to. Rowan's expression softened slightly. Love isn't about who got there first. It's about who stays. The words hung in the air like a challenge and a promise. As Gareth left that evening, he paused at the door. Can I come back? Next week, maybe. I looked at Rowan. He gave the smallest nod. Next Saturday, I said. Same time. After he left, I collapsed on the couch, emotionally exhausted. That was intense, Rowan said, sitting beside me. I don't know if I did the right thing. Neither do I, he admitted. But we'll figure it out. Together. He pulled me close, and I let myself believe him. But late that night, after everyone was asleep, I got a text from an unknown number. Stay away from him. He's mine. You already had your chance. Who do you think sent that message? And what do you think will happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments. The text message glowed on my phone screen like a thread. Stay away from him. He's mine. You already had your chance. My blood ran cold. Rebecca. It had to be Rebecca. I screenshot the message and showed Rowan. His jaw tightened as he read it. Block the number, he said immediately. And if she contacts you again, we're filing a restraining order. But blocking her didn't stop the feeling that someone was watching. Waiting. The next Saturday, Gareth arrived right on time. But something was different. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that hadn't been there before. You okay? I asked as he stepped inside. Rebecca showed up at my apartment last night, he admitted, setting down a bag of diapers he'd brought. She's not taking the breakup well. My stomach twisted. Did she threaten you? Not exactly. She just kept saying I was making a mistake. That those babies weren't really mine. That you were trapping me. He rubbed his face. I told her to leave and not come back. She texted me. I said quietly. Told me to stay away from you. Garrett's face went pale. Alara, I'm so sorry. I never thought she'd. It's not your fault. I cut him off, though part of me wondered if it was. But we need to be careful. For the kids' sake. He nodded, then turned his attention to the babies. Weston was awake, staring at him with those serious gray eyes. Gareth knelt down. Hey, buddy. Remember me? And Weston smiled. Not a gas smile this time. A real, genuine smile of recognition. Something broke open in Gareth's expression. Pure joy mixed with regret, so deep it looked painful. He knows me, Gareth whispered, looking up at me with wet eyes. He actually knows me. I swallowed hard against the emotion rising in my throat. Kids are smart like that. They know who shows up. The afternoon passed quietly. Gareth fed Miles a bottle, burped him, and laughed when the baby spit up on his shoulder. He read Iris a bored book about animals, doing silly voices that made her giggle. He was trying, really trying. But that night, after he left, I found a note tucked under my car's windshield wiper. He'll leave you again. He always does. You're not special. My hand shook as I read it. Rebecca was escalating. I called Gareth immediately. She was here, at my apartment. She left a note on my car. I'm coming over, he said, and I heard keys jangling in the background. No, I said firmly. That's exactly what she wants. Drama. Confrontation. We're not giving her that. Then what do? We document everything, I said, channeling the calm nurse voice I use during emergencies. Every text, every note, every incident. And if she shows up again, we call the police. 3 days later, Rebecca showed up at the hospital. I was at the nurse's station when I saw her striding down the hall, dressed like she was in a business meeting, her heels clicking against the linoleum. I need to speak with you, she announced, loud enough that heads turned. This isn't the place, I said quietly. You need to leave. Not until you hear what I have to say. She stepped closer, and I could smell expensive perfume mixed with something sharper, desperation. Gareth is using you. He doesn't want those babies. He wants me back, and you're just his excuse to avoid commitment. Ma'am, you need to leave now, my supervisor said, appearing at my elbow, or I'm calling security. Rebecca's perfect composure cracked. He's mine, she hissed at me. I spent 2 years building a life with him. You can't just show up with some random babies and... They're not random, I said, my voice ice cold. They're his children. And if you can't accept that, it's not my problem. Security arrived. Rebecca left, but not before shooting me a look that promised this wasn't over. That night, I filed a police report. Gareth did the same. The officer was sympathetic, but honest. Unless she makes an actual threat or tries to harm you, there's not much we can do except document it. Rowan held me that night while I cried angry, frustrated tears. She's trying to ruin this, I said. Just when things were starting to feel okay. She can't ruin anything unless we let her, Rowan said firmly. We protect our family, however we need to. The word family settled over me like a warm blanket. That's what we were now, messy and complicated, but family nonetheless. 2 weeks passed with no contact from Rebecca. I started to relax, thinking maybe she'd finally given up. Then Gareth called me on a Thursday night, his voice shaking. Alara, she broke into my apartment, destroyed every photo I had of the kids, left a message on my bathroom mirror in lipstick. What did it say? His voice cracked. Choose. What would you do if someone threatened your family? Tell us in the comments. The police took Rebecca's break-in seriously. Gareth pressed charges. A restraining order was filed within 48 hours. But the damage was done. Gareth looked haunted, jumping at every sound, checking over his shoulder constantly. She's unraveling, he told me during his Saturday visit. I knew the breakup hurt her, but I didn't think she'd go this far. People do crazy things when they feel like they're losing control, I said, bouncing Iris on my hip. But you're safe now. We all are. I wanted to believe that. Needed to believe it. Gareth had been visiting every Saturday for 2 months now. The babies lit up when they saw him. Even Rowan had warmed to him, and sometimes I find them talking about sports or cars while the triplets played between them. It was strange, this patchwork family we were building. 2 men who loved the same woman and 3 children caught in the middle. But somehow it was working. Then came the day that changed everything. I was at the grocery store with all 3 babies, a logistical nightmare I'd finally mastered when I saw her. Rebecca, standing by the dairy section, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. My first instinct was to run, but I had 3 infants in a shopping cart and too much pride to show fear. I kept walking, my heart hammering, pretending I hadn't seen her. They're beautiful, she said as I passed. I stopped, turned. Excuse me. The babies, Rebecca continued, stepping closer. They really do have his eyes. I can see why he chose them over me. There was no anger in her voice, just resignation, sadness. Rebecca, you have a restraining order. I know, she interrupted. I'm not here to cause trouble. I needed to see for myself, to understand what I was competing with. She looked at the babies, really looked at them, and her eyes filled with tears. I wanted that, she whispered. A family. Children. The whole thing. And when the doctor said Gareth probably couldn't give me that, I tried to stay. I really did. But every day felt like mourning something I'd never have. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. I'm sorry you're hurting, but terrorizing us isn't going to fix anything. I know, she said, wiping her eyes. I know, and I'm ashamed. The break-in, the notes, God, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. I was just drowning. She took a shaky breath. I'm leaving, moving to Arizona to stay with my sister. I just wanted to apologize before I go. You didn't deserve any of what I did. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry, but another part understood her pain in a way I wished I didn't. I hope you find what you're looking for, I finally said, and I hope it's not attached to someone else's life. She nodded, gave the babies one last look, and walked away. I stood there in the dairy aisle, holding onto my shopping cart, feeling like I'd just witnessed something significant shift. When I told Gareth later, he was quiet for a long time. I hurt her, he said finally. Maybe not the way I hurt you, but I hurt her. And I'm going to have to live with that. We all hurt people, I said. What matters is what we do after. He looked at me with something like hope. What are we doing after, Alara? What is this between us? It was the question I'd been avoiding for months. I don't know, I admitted. I know you're their father. I know you're trying. But I don't know if I can ever trust you the way I did before. I don't expect you to, Gareth said. But maybe we can build something new. Not what we had, but something better. Something honest. Rowan came home then, and the conversation ended. But that night, lying in bed, I thought about Gareth's words. Something new. Something honest. Maybe that was possible. Maybe we could all find a way to coexist in this strange new world we'd created. Or maybe I was being naive again, believing in second chances that didn't exist. The weeks passed. Rebecca kept her word and left town. The restraining order stayed in place, just in case. Slowly, life returned to a new kind of normal. Garrett's visits increased to twice a week. He'd take the babies to the park, read to them, help with feedings. He opened a savings account for their college education, even though money was tight. One evening, he showed up with a lawyer. My stomach dropped. What's this about? I want to make things official, Gareth said. Put my name on their birth certificates. Set up custody arrangements. Make sure they're taken care of if anything happens to either of us. I looked at Rowan, who nodded slightly. Okay, I said. Let's talk. The lawyer was professional and kind. She explained how joint custody would work, how holidays would be split, how we could protect everyone's rights while putting the children first. It felt surreal, sitting at my dining table negotiating the details of raising children with a man who'd once told me he didn't want them for me. But as we talked, something became clear. We were all trying to do right by 3 innocent kids who didn't ask for any of this mess. I have one condition, I said as the lawyer packed up her papers. Rowan stays in their lives. He's been their father since day one, and I won't let legal paperwork erase that. Gareth looked at Rowan, then back at me. I wouldn't want it any other way. Those kids are lucky to have him. The 2 men shook hands, and I felt something in my chest loosen. Do you think blended families like this can really work? Share your experience in the comments. 6 months after that first hospital encounter, our strange little family had found its rhythm. Gareth had weekday evenings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Rowan and I had the rest. Holidays were split. Major decisions were made together. All 3 of us sitting around my kitchen table like the world's most complicated co-parenting committee. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. The babies were thriving. At 10 months old, they were pulling themselves up on furniture, babbling constantly, and developing distinct personalities. Iris was fearless, always trying to climb things she shouldn't. Weston was cautious, watching everything twice before attempting it. Miles was the charmer, flashing smiles at strangers and laughing at his own reflection. They had 2 dads and 1 mom, and somehow that felt like enough. But I'd be lying if I said it was easy. There were hard moments, like when Gareth brought a date to pick up the kids, and I had to swallow the complicated feelings that stirred up, or when Rowan and I talked about marriage, and I had to explain why I wasn't ready to trust those promises again. One Tuesday night, Gareth asked if he could talk to me alone after dropping the kids off. We sat on my porch steps, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. "I've been seeing someone," he said quietly. "Her name is Maya. She's a teacher, divorced, has a daughter of her own." "Okay," I said, not sure where this was going. "She asked me yesterday if I still had feelings for you." He picked at the porch railing, and I didn't know how to answer. My heart did something complicated in my chest. "I'll always love you, Elara," he continued. "You were my first real love, my wife, the mother of my children. But I think what I feel now is different. It's gratitude, respect, maybe even friendship, if you'll let it be." "What did you tell Maya?" I asked. "The truth. That I'm not in love with you anymore, but I'll always care about you because of what we share." He looked at me. Was that the right answer? I thought about it. About the man sitting next to me, so different from the one who'd walked away 2 years ago. About Rowan inside, probably reading bedtime stories to triplets who called him Dada. About the life I'd built from the ruins of my marriage. "Yeah," I said softly. "That was exactly right." Something settled between us then. An understanding. We'd never be what we were, but we could be something new. Something better for our children. "I'm glad you found someone," I added. "You deserve to be happy too." "So do you," Gareth said. "And I think Rowan makes you happy in ways I never could." He was right. Rowan did make me happy. Not in the quiet, comfortable way Gareth once had, but in a way that felt alive. Intentional. Like he chose me every single day instead of just staying because we'd made promises once. 2 months later, Rowan proposed. Not with a big production or public gesture. Just the two of us in the kitchen after we'd put the triplets to bed, him holding a simple ring and asking if I was ready to try forever again. I said yes. Not because I wasn't scared, I was terrified, but because some risks are worth taking. We told the kids first, even though they were too young to understand. Then we told Gareth. He hugged us both. "Congratulations. You two are good together." There was no jealousy, no anger, just genuine happiness for people he cared about. The wedding was small, just family and close friends in the same park where we'd had those first awkward playdates with Gareth and the babies. Gareth came with Maya, who was lovely and kind and didn't flinch when all 3 children called Gareth Daddy Gareth to distinguish him from Daddy Rowan. In his toast, Gareth said something that stuck with me. "I spent a long time being the villain in Elara's story, but she gave me a chance to be something else. To be better. And these 3 kids taught me that love isn't about biology or who was there first. It's about who stays." I cried. Rowan cried. Even Gareth's voice cracked at the end. That night, dancing with my new husband while 3 toddlers ran chaotic circles around us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. We still had hard days and difficult conversations and moments when the past hurt more than I wanted to admit. But we had built something real from the broken pieces. Something stronger because it had been tested. Have you ever had to rebuild your life from scratch? Tell us your story in the comments. The triplets turned 2 years old on a warm spring day. We threw them a joint birthday party in my backyard. Now our backyard, since Rowan had officially moved in after the wedding. Both families came. My side, Garrett's side, even Maya and her daughter Sophia, who the triplets adored. Watching everyone together, laughing, sharing food, celebrating 3 children who were loved by so many people, felt surreal. Garrett's mother pulled me aside at one point. She'd been one of the voices pushing hardest for grandchildren back when I was drowning in infertility treatments. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, "for making you feel like you weren't enough, for putting that pressure on both of you." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to hold onto the anger, to remind her how much her words had hurt, but I was tired of carrying that weight. "Thank you," I said simply. "That means a lot." She hugged me, and I let her, and something old and bitter finally loosened its grip. Life moved forward. The kids started preschool. Garrett's business stabilized. Rowan got a promotion in the hospital. Maya moved in with Gareth, and suddenly our triplets had a stepsister who treated them like precious treasures. We became the kind of family that confused people at school pickup. 2 dads, 1 mom. Sometimes Maya. Always chaos. But it worked. One evening, when the kids were 3, Iris asked a question that made everyone freeze. Why do we have 2 daddies? We'd known this conversation was coming. I prepared for it. But preparation doesn't make it easier. Rowan and I sat down with all 3 of them. Gareth came over too, because this explanation needed all of us. Before you were born, I started carefully. Daddy Gareth and I were married. But sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and hurt each other, so we stopped being married. Then Daddy Rowan came. Rowan continued, and he helped Mommy take care of you when you were tiny babies. And Daddy Gareth realized he wanted to know you too, Gareth added, his voice gentle. So now you have 2 daddies who love you very much. Iris processed this with the seriousness only a 3-year-old can muster. Like Sophia has 2 houses? Exactly like that, I said. Okay, Iris said, and went back to her coloring book. Weston frowned. But why did you hurt each other? That question hit harder. How do you explain adult failures to a child who only knows love? Because I was scared and made very bad choices, Gareth said honestly. I hurt your mommy, and I'm sorry for that. But because of those mistakes, I learned how to be a better person. And now I get to be your daddy, which is the best thing that ever happened to me. Miles, always the emotional one, climbed into Gareth's lap. Don't be sad, Daddy Gareth. And just like that, the moment passed. The kids went back to playing, and we adults sat there marveling at how easily they accepted the complicated truth of their existence. That night, after everyone left and the kids were asleep, Rowan and I sat on the porch. We did okay, he said, pulling me close. Yeah, I agreed. We really did. Looking back at everything, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the impossible pregnancy, the messy healing, I couldn't regret any of it. Because without that pain, I wouldn't have found this peace. Without Gareth leaving, I wouldn't have met Rowan. Without hitting rock bottom, I wouldn't have learned how strong I actually was. The next morning, I took the kids to the old farmhouse where Gareth and I had gotten married. The oak tree was still there, bigger now, its roots deeper. The kids climbed over those roots while I sat beneath the branches, and I felt nothing but gratitude. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd found in the losing. Mommy, look, Iris shouted, hanging upside down from a low branch. I looked, and I saw 3 beautiful children who had 2 fathers and 1 mother and more love than most kids ever know. I saw a life rebuilt from ashes. I saw proof that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, you're free now. You're whole. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. What's the most important lesson you've learned from heartbreak? Share with us below. 5 years after that day, in the hospital elevator, I sat at my kitchen table grading permission slips for the triplets' field trip to the Science Museum. Rowan was at work. Gareth was picking the kids up from school. Maya was bringing Sophia over for dinner. It was controlled chaos, the kind I'd learned to love. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My stomach clenched. Old habits die hard. But when I opened it, my breath caught. It was Rebecca. Iyalada. I know this is unexpected. I'm in therapy now, working through a lot of things. My therapist suggested I make amends to people I hurt. You're at the top of that list. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a response. I just want you to know I'm deeply sorry for everything I put you through. You didn't deserve any of it. I hope you and your family are happy. You deserve that. Rebecca, I stared at the message for a long time. 5 years ago, it would have brought up anger, fear, resentment. Now I just felt nothing. She was a chapter in my life that had closed long ago. I typed back, thank you for reaching out. I hope you found peace. Take care. Then I blocked the number. Not out of anger, but out of protection. That part of my life was over, and I didn't need windows left open to the past. The front door burst open. 3 7-year-olds tumbled in, talking over each other about their day. Mommy, Tommy said I can't have 2 dads, but I told him yes, I can. Iris announced proudly. And I said some kids have 2 moms, and some have one of each, and all families are different, Weston added, ever the peacekeeper. Miles was quieter. But why did Tommy say it was weird? I knelt down to his level. Some people haven't learned yet that different doesn't mean bad. It just means different, and that's okay. Gareth appeared in the doorway, Maya beside him. Everything okay? Just teaching him about small minds, I said, standing up. Nothing we can't handle. Dinner that night was loud. 7 people around a table meant for 6, everyone talking at once, laughter bouncing off the walls. At one point, I looked around at this impossible family we'd created. At Gareth and Maya, happy together in a way that felt healthy. At Rowan, who'd become the steady center of my world. At 3 children who knew they were loved by so many people. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better. After the kids were in bed, I found an old photo album in my closet. Pictures from my first wedding. Young, naive Alara staring at the camera with stars in her eyes. I didn't feel sad looking at her. Or angry. Just grateful. That girl had to break to become the woman I was now. Had to lose everything to learn what really mattered. I closed the album and put it away. Not hiding it. Just acknowledging it was a chapter that had ended so better ones could begin. The next week, a reporter from a local parenting magazine reached out. She'd heard about our unique co-parenting situation and wanted to interview us for an article about modern families. We agreed. All 4 of us, me, Rowan, Gareth, and Maya, sat down and told our story. Not the dramatic parts, not the betrayal and the pain, but the healing, the choosing to be better, the decision to put children first even when it was hard. When the article came out, the response was overwhelming. Dozens of families reached out saying they were navigating similar situations. Single parents, divorced couples, blended families trying to figure out how to make it work. We realized our story wasn't just ours. It belonged to everyone who'd ever had to rebuild their life from broken pieces. I started a blog. Just simple posts about co-parenting, about healing, about learning to love again after betrayal. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. And people responded. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Because everyone's been hurt. Everyone's had to choose whether to stay bitter or become better. Everyone's wondered if they could ever trust again. One email particularly moved me. A woman named Sarah wrote, "Your story gave me hope. My husband just left me, and I thought my life was over. But reading about how you rebuilt yourself reminded me that endings can be beginnings. Thank you." I showed it to Rowan. "We did that," I said, tears in my eyes. "Our mess helps someone else. Pain that becomes purpose," he said softly. "That's what healing looks like." On the triplets' 8th birthday, we took them back to the oak tree. All of us, the whole chaotic, beautiful family. I stood beneath those branches that had witnessed my first wedding, and I felt nothing but peace. "Mom, can we climb it?" Miles asked. "Of course," I said. "Just be careful." I watched them climb, brave Iris leading, cautious Weston following, charming Miles cheering them both on, and I thought about the journey that had brought us here. How rejection had led to freedom. How loss had led to gain. How the man who said he needed a son, but not for me, had given me 3 children who taught me I never needed his validation in the first place. Gareth stood beside me, watching them too. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving me a second chance, for letting me be their father even though I didn't deserve it." "You earned it," I said, "by showing up, by doing the work. That's all any of us can do." Maya joined us, Sophia on her hip. "They're lucky kids," she said, "having this many people who love them." "We're the lucky ones," Rowan corrected, wrapping an arm around me. "They taught us what real love looks like." And he was right. Real love isn't perfect. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it fails. But when it succeeds, when people choose to be better, to heal, to build something beautiful from the ruins, that's when magic happens. That's when justice whispers its quiet truth. You're free. You're whole. You're exactly where you're meant to be. As the sun set over the oak tree and 3 children played in its branches, I realized something profound. I'd spent so long trying to prove I was enough for someone else. I'd never needed proof. I'd always been enough. And so are you. Thank you for joining us on Alara's journey from heartbreak to healing. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring love story. Share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, endings are just beginnings in disguise. You are enough. You always were. Until next time, Keep believing in second chances and the quiet justice of life. We'll see you in the next story.